Good evening. This is the I-24 News Evening Edition. I'm Lucia Arish, and these are the headlines. Jordanian lawmakers push for an annulment of the 20-year peace treaty with Israel, while the Arab League holds an emergency session. The reason: sovereignty over the Temple Mount. For the first time since 2006, Hezbollah confirms an Israeli air raid on one of its positions and vows revenge. We all know the world is becoming more virtual and internet-based, but is it also becoming an illusion? A look at the evolution of the hologram. Good evening. 20 years after Israel and Jordan signed an historic peace treaty, lawmakers in Amman have signed a petition calling for its cancellation. The step back in the relationship follows an Israeli parliament debate on the country's sovereignty over the holy site of Temple Mount. I-24 News correspondent Jaffa Port has the story.
Is the 20-year-old Israeli-Jordanian peace treaty in jeopardy? A third of Jordan's lower house signed a motion that the treaty be annulled following the Israeli parliament debate on its sovereignty over the Temple Mount. According to the Jordanian petition, quote, Israel's actions clearly violate the peace treaty. It is aggression against Jordanian custodianship. Most of the signatories came from Jordan's Islamic Action Front, a Muslim Brotherhood faction that serves as the kingdom's main opposition party.
We ask the government to accede to the demands of those who have called repeatedly for freezing and eventually cancelling the peace treaty.
According to the Jordan Times, several Jordanian parliament members urged the government to expel the Israeli ambassador in Amman. The report also cited Foreign Minister Nasser Judeh firmly condemning the Israeli bill.
Not one and not even 1,000 Knesset members can cancel the Hashemite custodianship of Islamic and Christian holy shrines in Jerusalem.
The Israeli parliament, the Knesset, debated a right-wing demand to realize Israel's sovereignty on the Temple Mount and to examine the right of non-Muslims to enter and pray at the holy compound, which is jointly administered by the Jordanian government and the Jerusalem-based Islamic Waqf. At the same time the debate was taking place, clashes erupted between Israeli forces and Palestinian protesters on Temple Mount, the latest in a series of rioting near the Al-Aqsa Mosque in the past month.
It is a clear violation which is rejected by all the religions and the international laws. It is a violation against Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Israeli authorities are responsible.
Yesterday's Knesset discussion ended with no vote being taken, but resulted in dangerous unrest among the Jordanians, one of Israel's sole allies in the region. The Arab League also held an emergency session to discuss Israeli policy toward the Temple Mount as the conflict surrounding the holy site continues to escalate.
And joining me right now in the studio is senior Middle East analyst Ali Wackett. Good evening, Ali.
Good evening, Lucy.
So is Israel's peace treaty with Jordan really at risk?
No, it is not at risk. We should remember that it was only the parliament that voted today, and the parliament declared that it is waiting to see how will the Jordanian government deal with this vote, but it reflects with no doubt a feeling of the Jordanians that the Israelis are taking unilateral measures in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, in the Temple Mount, and I think that if the Israelis will go on with this law proposal, it will affect the Jordanian-Israeli relations.
Yeah, but we know that it was only, let's say, a discussion in the parliament. We know that it came from the really extreme right wing of the parliament, of the government. Is that really a real thing?
Yeah, but this move also in the parliament means that for the moment it is only limited to the Jordanian parliament that has no really power, and that if in the Knesset this law proposal will take some steps forward to be an official adopted law by the Knesset, the Jordanian are raising a flag that we might also take our measures. Lucy, we should remember that last year the Jordanians and the Palestinian Authority signed an agreement that they decided that they are going to fight any unilateral measures over the mosque and any attempt of Israel to what they say Judaize the site, the holy site, and the Jordan Kingdom is paying the salaries of hundreds of Waqf employees in Jordan. The Jordanians are part of the fight between right-wing Israeli associations over real estate around the Temple Mount Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Jordanians are following very closely every development in the Temple Mount in Al-Aqsa, and an Israeli measure to change the status quo will find a very serious and unprecedented reaction from the side of the Jordanian, as I was told this evening by Jordanian sources.
So the Jordanian sources are worried, and they're actually raising the red flag, like you said.
Yes.
Okay, Ali Waqed, thank you very much. And of course, you'll keep on updating us on this subject. And for the first time since 2006, Hezbollah acknowledged on Wednesday that it was, in fact, a target of the Israeli military strike. The admission follows a report by Time magazine saying that Israeli warplanes struck a Syrian weapons convoy that was destined for Hezbollah in Lebanon. I-24 News correspondent Eli Ochenberg has more.
After 48 hours of denial and 8 years of no official comment, Hezbollah confirmed an Israeli air raid on one of its positions in Lebanon and vowed to retaliate.
The new aggression is a blatant assault on Lebanon and its sovereignty and its territory. The resistance will choose the time and place and the proper way to respond to it.
Hezbollah said the attack Monday night caused material damage but no casualties, contradicting Arab media reports of multiple victims. The militant group also denied that any artillery or rocket positions had been hit.
I don't comment about what we did or didn't do.
Israel had refused to comment on reports about the attack allegedly targeting several locations near the Baqa Valley village near the Syrian border. But one unnamed Israeli official confirmed the strike in an interview with Time magazine. In the meantime, media sources in Lebanon reported that Lebanese President Michel Suleiman has asked officials to gather all available information about the strike in order to file a complaint to the UN Security Council. The porous border is frequently used by fighters and smugglers to traffic people and weapons between Lebanon and Syria. The area is a bastion of Hezbollah support, and the group is known to have several outposts and training camps there. Israel has repeatedly voiced alarm that amid the chaos of Syria's civil war, substantial arms could be transferred to Hezbollah, a strong supporter of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. This was the first attack on the Lebanon-Syria border this year that has been attributed to Israel. According to foreign news sources, there were at least 6 such attacks during 2013, all of which targeted weapons convoys from Syria to Hezbollah forces in Lebanon.
The body of a 19-year-old IDF soldier who went missing a week ago has been discovered near Haifa University. Signs of violence were found on Tamar Abu Yemen's body, raising suspicions of foul play. Police spokesman Miki Rosenfeld said the first assessment is that the soldier was killed in a criminal-related, not terrorist incident. We're moving to Turkey. Hundreds of Turkish protesters clashed with police on Tuesday night in Istanbul and Ankara. They had taken to the streets to denounce voice recordings suggesting that Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan warned his son to hide large sums of money prior to the graft inquiry that targeted the government. The corruption scandal, which erupted on December 17th, has spiraled into one of the biggest changes and challenges of Erdogan's 11th year rule. And with me here in the studio is Dr. Galia Lindenstrauss, research fellow at the INSS. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. So do we know that the scandal is actually real?
Erdogan is claiming that it's a montage, that it's not real, that it's a fake. But of course, the opposition is saying that he should resign. So Turkey, as usual, is polarized. Those who believe Erdogan, that somebody is against him, somebody wants to cause his fall, and those who think that he's corrupt and he should go.
So how really the protesters can win this, and can they actually make him resign?
I don't think the protesters on the street can do this. What might do this is the March 30 elections. There are local elections in Turkey, and if the Justice and Development Party will, it probably will not lose its control over most cities, but if it will lose part of its control, that might change some things with regard to Erdogan.
So let's try to look again at his power right now. Is he still popular like he was?
We don't have public opinion polls from the last days. We have from the past few weeks. In these public opinion polls, he was still strong. He lost a bit of his support, but not something serious. But we have to wait for the polls after this revelation. And there's also supposedly going to be new revelations this night. There's supposed to be pictures that will be revealed. So things are yet developing.
So who is in the future can be a candidate against Erdogan?
I think that's the problem with Turkey, that you don't see an alternative. You don't see somebody serious. Even the president, President Abdullah Gül, that some thought might replace Erdogan, he looks as though he's despaired. He's not really going to be a challenge.
So no one is in the near future. Any criticism in the Turkish journalists, from the media, about the way that he's handling the whole thing?
Yes, you have a lot of criticism in the media that is against the Justice and Development Party, but of course you have the pro-government media. So again, this is this polarization I was talked about earlier. We're in a problem in Turkey. We don't see yet a strong candidate that can challenge Erdogan, but I believe that in the forthcoming years he will arise.
Okay. Galia Lindenstrauss, thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
An Egyptian court sentenced 26 people to death today after they were convicted of founding a terror group and of manufacturing missiles and explosives. According to reports, the group aimed to target ships traveling in the Suez Canal. The sentencing comes one day after the country's designate prime minister vowed to crush terror in Egypt. U.S. President Barack Obama is prepared to withdraw all American troops from Afghanistan by the end of 2014 if a long-delayed bilateral security agreement remains unsigned. The possibility is raising concerns given the unrest that emerged in Iraq after the U.S. pullout in 2011. I-24 News correspondent Kavita Trakovsky reports.
For the United States, the war in Afghanistan may soon be over. President Barack Obama has conveyed a willingness to withdraw all American troops from the country by the end of this year, unless a long-delayed bilateral security agreement is reached with the Afghan government.
The fact that President Karzai has indicated that it is unlikely he will sign the BSA means that if he doesn't sign it, it is at least possible that a successor Afghan government might sign it, but that pushes us later into the year. And the longer we go without a signed BSA, by necessity, the more narrow in size and ambition the mission for a post-2014 force would be.
U.S. troops have been stationed in Afghanistan since shortly after 9/11. Toppling the Taliban and the ensuing effort to maintain stability in the country have come with a heavy death toll. About 1,800 U.S. soldiers have died in combat and nearly 20,000 have been wounded. Hamid Karzai, Afghanistan's first and only president since the Taliban's ouster, has had an up-and-down relationship with the U.S. Reports suggest Karzai refuses to sign the agreement due to ongoing peace talks with the Taliban. Claiming a signed BSA would hold him responsible for the deaths of Afghans by the U.S. In 2011, the Obama administration conducted a full military withdrawal from Iraq under similar circumstances. While it is tempting to once again bring the troops back home, the carnage in Iraq is a cautionary tale.
And joining me right now via Skype is Colonel Richard Camp, former commander of British forces in Afghanistan. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, Colonel Camp, you know perhaps better than anyone the implications of this. What are they?
Well, I think if the agreement is not signed and if the US withdraw completely, we have basically got a catastrophe, not only in Afghanistan, but also for the West and for other countries. We saw what happened in Iraq when US forces were pretty much forced to pull out entirely from there. The country has descended into ever-increasing terror and it's getting even worse. In Afghanistan, we're going to see the same situation, in my view. We're going to see the Taliban taking over large parts of southern and eastern Afghanistan, almost irrespective of what happens. The only way that those areas are going to be able to be controlled by the Americans and prevented from again becoming another base for a 9/11 type attacks is by continuing presence of the US special forces and air assets in Afghanistan to interdict them.
So, Colonel Camp, what chances does Afghanistan have of stability after a US pullout?
Well, I think after a complete US pullout, I think the chances are very, very badly degraded. If the US does retain a significant but much less present special forces, intelligence, air assets, I think then there is a much greater chance that at least parts of Afghanistan will remain stable, and there will be fighting, I've no doubt, still in the southern areas and in the east and other parts of the country. But I think the Americans can help an Afghan army that will be in a very difficult struggle to contain the insurgents. I think can help it by maintaining assets there.
So let's move to the UK quickly. A judge has just handed down sentences in last year's murder of Lee Rigby. What can you tell us about this?
Well, I think it's extremely welcome. The killing of Lee Rigby was a devastating act, one of the worst terrorist acts that have been seen on British soil. And the perpetrators of that act deserve every single thing the judge gave them.
Colonel Kemp, thank you very much for this. And we're moving. More developments in Ukraine. The government disbanded the elite security police force as Russia announced military exercises on the border. As the country tries to find stability, 3 EU ministers are set to visit tomorrow. Here's more.
As Ukrainians mourn those killed during the recent unrest, President Vladimir Putin put Russia's combat forces on alert in an urgent drill on Wednesday in its western region bordering Ukraine. Such surprise drills meant to test combat readiness of troops are not uncommon. But the timing and the location are significant given the ongoing geopolitical tug-of-war between Russia and the West over Ukraine. Western countries have warned Russia against military intervention in Ukraine. For their part, Russian officials have said Moscow will not interfere while accusing the West of doing so.
We confirmed our principle of non-intervention into Ukraine's interior affairs, and we expect everyone to act in the same way and use the contacts with different political forces in Ukraine to influence them in terms of soothing the situation.
But Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said on Monday that Russia's interests and its citizens in Ukraine were under threat. A statement reminiscent of those justifying Russia's invasion of Georgia in 2008 when Medvedev was president. Meanwhile, Ukraine's special riot police force known as the Berkut is to be disbanded. Kiev's interim authorities held the unit responsible for the deaths of most of the 100 people killed in the clashes that led to the ousting of Moscow-backed leader Viktor Yanukovych. However, the decision has not been accepted by activists in Crimea who refuse to recognize the new authorities in Kiev.
I'm here to support our guys who did their best at Maidan, defending the right cause, who refused to go along with the dirty Orange Revolution. This is why I'm here. The guys are not responsible for our corrupt government that behaved that way.
Further deepening the prospect of a national divide along political fault lines, Crimean and other eastern pro-Russia separatists call openly for secession from Ukraine. In Crimea, thousands of ethnic Russians who formed the majority in this region demonstrated on Wednesday for independence. They scuffled with rival demonstrators, mainly from the Tatar minority who support the new authorities in Kiev. And in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, pro-Russian protesters raised the Russian flag over the city hall as Kiev's new authorities warn against separatism.
Moving to Hong Kong, the news editor at the center of a freedom of speech controversy in Hong Kong is fighting for his life after being stabbed multiple times today. Last month, journalists were outraged when Kevin Liu was suddenly fired from his post at a newspaper known for its hard-hitting reporting on China. On Sunday, thousands of journalists marched through downtown Hong Kong to express concerns over freedom of expression in the city. And still to come on this evening edition.
What does it take to produce a
high-level diplomatic visit? Behind the scenes look reveals quite a lot. We all know the world is becoming more virtual and internet-based, but is it also becoming an illusion? A look at the evolution of the hologram. Don't go anywhere. 2 minutes break, and I'll be back. Welcome back. Hundreds of distinguished foreign officials visit Israel every year, with each visit demanding a highly complicated logistical operation for the host. I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev was lucky to take a tour behind the scenes of the German Chancellor's visit to Israel.
Israelis are not known to be experts of any kind on formalities or etiquette, but when high-profile visitors arrive, they have no choice but to go by the international diplomatic rules. The devil is in the details, they say, and when the top leaders of the world land in Israel, there is no room for mistakes. Too many ceremonies, speeches, and handshakes are at stake. Hundreds of official visitors arrive in Israel each year, many of them very highly ranked. Just in the past month, the King David has hosted the President of Peru, the head of the European Parliament, and many others. But some visits are more complicated than others. The Obama presidential visit last year was a challenging logistical operation, like the German Chancellor's visit this week. The airport logistics are just the beginning. Cars, meals, rooms, meetings, seating arrangements, and a lot of security need to be arranged for every delegation. And Merkel decided to tell all of her cabinet ministers to accompany her on her 24-hour quickie to Israel.
People still care, and mainly about two things. Number one, how you spell the name, and number two, the flag and the red carpet. Which means that although we are in an informal time, still this diplomatic protocol and the way you treat your guests when they come to visit you is something that everybody pays attention to.
One department in the Israeli Foreign Ministry can breathe easier now that the German Chancellor's visit has been concluded, with no apparent mistakes, at least not in the protocol realm. The Protocol and Official Guests Bureau organizes, coordinates, and hosts the official visits to Israel. They're in charge of the whole itinerary, transportation, hotel rooms, and airport arrangements, as well as meetings, tours, and visits of special interest of all foreign dignitaries that arrive in the country, from heads of states and prime ministers to members of parliament and government officials.
We are not the picture itself. The picture itself is up to the foreign minister, the prime minister. We are in charge of the frame. If the picture is beautiful and the frame is ugly, you will not think the picture is so beautiful, and vice versa.
In the age of the recent WikiLeaks and Snowden diplomatic scandals, the red carpet could be just a remnant of a bygone era in which diplomacy was an art and craft. But the fact is that rules and regulations initiated generations ago remain in place and appear to be timeless.
There was something else that ended up capturing all the headlines of the Merkel visit, a single photograph. Mark Israel, photographer at the Jerusalem Post, took a candid photo of Netanyahu and Merkel, and it's since gone viral and dominated the conversation. And Mark Israel joins me right now here in the studio. Good evening.
Good evening.
I have to tell you, I first got it to my phone, and the first thing that went through my mind is that it's edited. It cannot.
Yes, a lot of people
real.
Thinking that I do Photoshop, but the only Photoshop that I do, it's a crop of the picture. That's it.
So how did you capture the moment?
You know, it's 50% work and 50% is kind of magic. You know, you have to find a good way where you have to stand for have the best picture, and you turn around, you're looking for the good place. When you have the good place, after you can wait, you have to do your job, and it's kind of a magical moment. You know, when Prime Minister hanging his hand up, with always taking a lot of picture, and generally the shadow on the face of people disturbing me because it's not so good. But this time it was perfect on the...
At the moment that you took the picture, did you see it?
No, I took the picture. I think I have also another picture that nobody have when Mrs. Merkel doing like this, and I thought that it was the best picture that I have, and I was happy with that. And when I did the editing of the picture after, I saw that, wow, there is something more interesting. So I sent it to the Post with all the picture.
When you see the picture on your computer and you realize that,
I said,
wow.
Wow. I have a good one. I sent it to the Post because I have, each week I have to bring the picture of the week. And I asked to the supplement editor if you think that we can use it for the picture of the week. And she told me, you know, I don't think so. So
your editor thought that,
they don't think
it's
so.
not the picture of the week?
You know, because you can interpret that in so many different ways. So, and what's going on that after I just received a phone call from a friend, a photographer. Wow, Sartena la Tmuna. You know, what's going on? You know, I see a picture on Facebook. Oh, and the Jerusalem Post in Hebrew put on his Facebook pages, and it starts from there. And in I think in 3 minutes we have more than 1,000 shares. And
1,000 shares.
Yeah, no, there is no. I think we find more than 3,000, something like this.
3,000 shares on
each
Facebook.
share, it's more sharing, and you know, I was on the French TV there yesterday.
Let's just try to calculate. What was the hour that you sent the picture?
I sent the picture around. I think around 12 and a half, something like this.
12 and a half?
Yes.
And the Jerusalem Post posted it around...
After 10 minutes after, I think on the Facebook of the...
Of the Jerusalem Post?
The Hebrew version of the Jerusalem Post is the newspaper is the Post, okay?
And so I received it around 5, so like around 5 to my personal phone. So I was, but until it got to my personal phone, it went like 3 hours.
No, it was before. I already received a lot of phone calls from USA, from Europe, and nothing from the German side.
Nothing from the German side.
Any German newspaper asked me for the picture.
Okay, and the Israeli side?
For sure, the Israeli, for sure. The English, the French, and we decide with the newspaper because of the kind of the picture that we're not selling the picture to nobody, but everybody took it from the Facebook and.
Yeah, that's the problem today when you have Facebook, so everything is for everyone. Mark Israel, thank you very much for this, and thank you for capturing the moment.
Thank you. Good evening.
Yes, and on a different note, a Ugandan newspaper has published a list of 200 people suspected of being gay, as well as graphic accounts of their alleged homosexual encounters. This a day after the country's president referred to gays as, quote, mercenaries, and signed one of the world's toughest anti-gay laws. Uganda has come under fierce international criticism for the new legislation, which could see homosexuals imprisoned for life. For the first time ever, a majority of Americans support gay marriage, but as I-24 News correspondent Ronnie Bembassa shows, the battle for LGBT rights is far from over.
53% of Americans support same-sex marriage, according to a survey conducted by the Public Religion Research Institute. The number has jumped sharply from 32% in 2003. It's been almost a decade since gay marriage was first legalized in the U.S. state of Massachusetts, and a lot has changed in the country since then.
Regardless of sexual orientation, when it comes to how the law treats you, how the state treats you, the benefits, the rights, and the responsibilities under the law, people should be treated equally.
It is no secret that Barack Obama's administration has openly supported the country's LGBT population. Since he took office in January 2009, 13 states and the District of Columbia have legalized same-sex unions, and legally married gay couples are now eligible for the same legal benefits as heterosexual couples.
Even in states where same-sex marriages are not recognized, the federal government will not use state views as a basis to object to someone in a same-sex marriage invoking this right.
The battle over gay marriage in the U.S. has reignited the debate over state versus federal jurisdiction. Federal judges have ruled as unconstitutional state prohibitions on gay marriage in Oklahoma, Utah, New Mexico, and Virginia. And the administration is backing state attorneys who refuse to defend their own state's bans on same-sex unions. While federal measures such as the overturn of DOMA in 2013 have advanced gay rights, a step back has seemingly been taken at the state level. The collision of LGBT rights and religious freedom has allowed for the passage of controversial legislation in a number of states, including an anti-gay bill not yet signed into law in Arizona, permitting business owners to decline service to gay customers on religious grounds. According to the survey, 70% of Americans view the Democratic Party as friendly towards the LGBT population, versus only 28% for the Republican Party, raising the question of what's next for the fight over gay rights after the next election in 2016.
And joining me now for a look at the week in economy is host of the I-24 News Economy magazine, Benjamin Chong Alvarez.
Hi,
hello,
Lucy.
hello, how are you?
Good.
So let's talk a little bit about fake money.
Fake money! Virtual currency.
Yes. Which is fake money.
Call it what you want, but if it pays and it gets you what you want, then it's money.
Yeah, so the virtual currency, Bitcoin, has been a hot topic.
Indeed, very hot topic.
Why?
Well,
you're here to tell us why.
Specifically, it relates to the extent to which it's a fluctuating currency. It's fascinating everybody because on the one hand, from an economic perspective, it's something we've never seen before.
Of course.
Paul Krugman said it best, recently. To be successful, money must be both a medium of exchange and a reasonably stable source of value. Okay. Now, Bitcoin is not exactly stable. It's been an amazing experience in terms of experiment, in terms of seeing it rise. It's gone from $30 to over $1,100, and then most recently going back to $530. When people realize that really maybe it's not so stable, and maybe because of potential hacking and because of ways in which it is
cyber attacks,
vulnerable, it's it's something that needs to be considered.
So can actually Bitcoin recover from this?
Yeah, Bitcoin can recover from this. I mean, there are people who hold Bitcoiners and people who are very much in favor of the concept of virtual currency believe that this is good because it shows what the weaknesses are and it will come back stronger. Now, there are people involved in Bitcoin who are not just, they're not just computer people, so to speak. There are a lot of people who are coming from a very strong finance background who have an understanding of how the market works. And it's been pointed out also, I wanted to just mention something I wanted to mention before. One of the things people say is that Bitcoin, or just virtual currency in general, because Bitcoin is not the only one. There are many different clones and forms of Bitcoin, so to speak.
Okay.
It's more of an investment than really a currency. People buy it thinking not just they want to use it for exchange, but it's something that really has been. I think it does definitely have a future. In fact, one of the places where it has a future is Iceland.
Oh.
On March 25th, if I'm not mistaken, there is a entrepreneur who has said that he's going to distribute Aurora coins, which is a form of Litecoin, which is, again, a sort of a clone, if you want, of Bitcoin. This is going to be distributed to all Icelanders, following, of course, the crisis that they had in Iceland, where they saw all their money more or less being taken away. It's meant to give a more fair and equal distribution of money so that everybody actually has the ability to spend, accordingly. I just wanted to stress here, one of the reasons why there is a future for virtual currency is because what we've seen so far with the crisis in the world and with all the protests that have followed it, people basically want to take the money away from the government and from the banks and back in their own pockets, so to speak. And virtual currency is one of the ways to do it.
Now you have to convince my mom that virtual money is actually real. And then she will believe that it's actually in her pocket. Benjamin, you'll be with us next week.
Absolutely.
As well. Thank you so very much for this. Holograms, the special technique that creates 3D images through laser beams, was invented almost 70 years ago, but has taken off recently with a host of new usages, from politics to science to art. I-24 News reporter Uli Shapira observes the line between the fake and real of holograms.
We live in a world where there is more and more information and less meaning. This is how French philosopher Jean Baudrillard described what he called simulacra, the way that symbols overshadow matter. One of the most significant examples of this phenomenon is the hologram.
The holography was invented by a Hungarian scientific by the name of Denis Gabor. And the first idea was brought up in 1947, and for about 15 years he was struggling in his lab to create a 3D image on a 2D surface.
April 15, 2012 may signal the turning point in hologram technology. Tupac, one of the most popular rappers in history, performed live in front of thousands of people. The only problem was, Tupac himself has been dead for more than 15 years. A year and a half later, Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan used a hologram to perform in Izmir during an election campaign rally. It's easy to recognize the advantages of hologram technology, though some ethical, moral, and logical problems arise from this subject.
If we look towards the future, in fact quite the near future, we will be able to transfer ourselves anywhere in the world, if not more. And of course, I mean, I can use it in terms of peace methods, but you know that there are in our world people who would like to use it in other methods.
Experts predict that holograms will be part of our daily life in the future. The Israeli high-tech company Realview Imaging developed a hologram that assists doctors during surgery.
And what that does is that gives you the patient's anatomy, the real patient's anatomy, in a position where it's hyper-realistic. You can see all of it. You can intuitively know where you are or what's going on inside that anatomy in real time. So you can use that to guide procedures. You can use that to understand better the anatomy that you want to deal with.
In a world that's consistently becoming virtual, it is hard to define between reality and fiction. Holograms may blur the borders, but meanwhile they're considered useful for science, art, and public relations. Can holograms provide the same quality of human interaction? The answer is still up in the air.
This is actually me. It's not a hologram. I'm here and still ahead on this I-24 News Evening Edition. The daily debate. Once again, Jerusalem's Temple Mount is the center of hostilities and drawing reactions from Israel and the Muslim world. And on One, a look into the theater of the Arab world. Don't go anywhere. The Real Me will be back in 2 minutes.